back to Keeping It Apostolic, most edifying podcast in the world. I'm joined here today with Kevin and Jonathan. Thank you guys for coming onto the podcast.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for having us.
So before we get started, we'd like to get to know you a little bit more, who you are, what you're about. So quick
Take it
little
away,
bios.
No, you got it, buddy. Take it away.
Please.
Either one.
All right. My name is Kevin. I am a consultant currently. I am a computer engineer by degree. I went to UTD. I graduated in 2024, right? No, 2023. Time flies when you're having fun. Yeah, and I serve here at St. Philo, St. Mark on the occasional Saturday or Thursday or Friday or whatever day it may be. That's about me.
Yeah, my name is Jonathan. I am also a consultant. I serve at St. Philopateer. I don't serve at St. Mark's on any occasional day. But yeah, thanks for having us.
Thank you guys for coming onto the podcast. Today we're talking about career and faith, but before we talk about the career side of things, talk a little bit more about faith. So my first question for you guys has a little bit to do about your background in the faith. A lot of us in the faith, as we grow up, we tend to kind of feel like a little lukewarm, in and out of church. You know, maybe we're taking it seriously, maybe not. But there's always that moment or that period of time in life that really like throws you into the deep end. You know, and you really just have to like find Christ in you. So what was that moment or time of life for you guys? Just talk more about it.
Sure, I can go. So a little background about me. I didn't always live in Dallas. I lived in Kansas City for 4.5 years. And the church in Kansas City was very, very small. And there wasn't really a service or anything. And that was part of the reason I moved back to Dallas. I lived in Dallas, moved to Kansas City, and then ended up moving back to Dallas. But part of the reason was because my parents were like, this kid doesn't really go to church. He doesn't really do anything. We know Dallas was pretty strong, and that was part of the reason that we moved back to Dallas. But I moved back in 11th grade, and I saw all of my friends that I had before, Kevin, Jason, Michael, I'm just naming people you guys don't know, Beshara, whoever. They all were like head and shoulders above where I was spiritually in church as deacons, whatever aspect you wanted to look at. And when I came back in 11th grade, I realized I had some ground to make up. So, I mean, coming back, realizing where I was, and just trying to make a push was basically the start of it for me.
So I also kind of had I got closer to Christ in high school, I would say for sure. I was blessed, right? I mean, I was born Coptic Orthodox. I know a lot of us are. And I was raised in the church, and I was at the church every Sunday. I was at the church every Friday for the choirs or whatever in the Sunday schools and the tasbihas. But it's very much a routine thing when you're younger, and you're just going because Mama and Baba took me, and, you know, why not? And it's just kind of like, that's my life, and that's what I do, and I'm enjoying it. I like singing the hymns. I like singing the choir. I like seeing my friends. But you kind of lose the purpose of it. And so in high school, and I was kind of just like, I kind of questioning like my purpose in life almost. And I was like, maybe unhappy a little bit that I was just, you know, I felt like I had no purpose, because I was like, oh, I was doing this service, or, oh, I'm in this hymns class. Oh, I'm in this, whatever, even outside of the church. I felt like a lack of purpose. And so I ended up finding it by understanding, you know, more about my faith, coming closer to Christ, and then less so much on my church and more on my faith, more on my belief, more on my Christ. And I say that happened to me in high school, and that's what helped me kind of come to Jesus moment almost.
I always love asking that question, because it's beautiful to see how God works and the work that he does in our lives, especially when it comes to like setting things into place. We're about to talk about like careers in a second, and I think that's a very big aspect. Like, it's always like the three like big questions in life. You know, it's like, what do you want to do for a career? Who are you going to marry? And then, I don't know what the third one was. I guess there's just two. Whatever, same thing. What car do you want to drive there? That's the third one.
There we go.
And so it's always like, what are things that we can do to like invite God into that setting, into those questions, into that like giving us of a purpose. So my question to you guys is, what are ways that you guys are into the working sphere of life and you're past all the education? How did you let God, or if you did, let God into those questions and into those decision making? How do you kind of foster that environment?
I will say that my favorite thing about, or not my favorite thing about God, but something I love is that I know that regardless of the situation or the circumstance or anything else, I can very much in my head say, all right, God, like please help me figure this out, help me make the right decision. And whether I expect it or not, I'm not going to sit here and be like, oh, every time you expect one thing, God will always do another and it's always perfect. Not necessarily, but I will say that I kind of let God guide my decisions and everything by just kind of doing things that I didn't push my own will on on all of my major life decisions. And what I mean by that, for instance, when I was graduating, I was, doing the job hunt, the 300 apps a week or whatever else. And it was all jobs that I wanted to do, right? I'm computer engineering. I wanted to be in engineering. I worked at a company for 2 years straight as like a co-op and all that. And I was like, okay, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to work at this company. They've told me they want me there, whatever else. And I didn't really pray that God's will be done. I just prayed that God help me figure this out. And, what obviously happened was what ended up happening, they had, wave of layoffs, hiring freeze. They basically told me kind of like, oh, hey, good luck. And so I started doing the grind, the applying for all those jobs. And I was applying for things that I knew I wanted to do, engineering jobs, things that like I would go on like Handshake or whatever, say like 100,000 jobs, and I'd filter by this, filter by that, filter by that. And then something that didn't meet any of those filters was the job I currently have, where it was like, I was like, that's when I started praying. I was like, oh God, like, I'm worried about my career and my life and how am I going to figure this out? Help me. And then Johnny reached out. He's like, just apply to my company and I'll refer you. And consulting is not what I went to school for. I don't have much experience and, I didn't have much prior experience to what I do now before that. But I feel like that was kind of like I didn't just wave it off or brush it off. I was like, I'm not sure if that's my thing, but let me go for it. And I prayed about it, and now that's where I ended up, and I'm happy there and all that. So I say that letting God make decisions in your life is just so much putting your own personal thing on hold, and it kind of helped me to make decisions in a more godly way, if that makes sense.
For me, I'm going to take it a little bit of a different route. I think definitely keeping God in all of your decision making is extremely important. But the way that I think I'm going to take it is finding God in everything that you do. And for me, I find him the most when I'm serving others. So for me, like serving Sunday school, serving OCCM when I was in college, all of these different things are the way that I think I became as close to the church as I ever was. And it's because there's always someone always needs service, something at your church always needs service, and always keeping that kind of at the front of your head, for me, is kind of how I keep it in my life, even, transitioning to working a job rather than going to school. It's always kind of keeping service, even if that's at work, if someone needs help with something or whatever it is. But for me, service is how I keep it in my life as well.
I really like that point, because I think that we get stuck in this mindset that like God has like a specific plan for exactly which job I'm going to take and which person I'm going to end up with and which friends I have, and like a very specific, like he's very detailed. And in reality, it's more of just like, do you have God with you? Like, are you walking with God, or are you not walking with God? Like, I feel like sometimes we try to constrict God to this box of like time and matter, and like he's only in me with me in this way if I do this thing or whatever. But God is like infinite. He's so much bigger than all of that. So it'd be kind of foolish of us to, kind of box him up like that.
I think it would be, because kind of going off what you said, it would be awesome if I could just say, like, God's, take over, and then everything will just be exactly what he wanted, and I don't have to worry about making the right or wrong decisions because I know God got it. But I think, even like Amba Yusuf always says, there's like strong will, which is a mixture of free will and God's will. We make our decisions. God has his own will in place. And then what ends up truly happening is something called a strong will, or a mixture of the two. So it's like having God with you in every decision helps you so that your will aligns closer to God's will. And then what ends up actually happening is as close to God's will as you possibly can get it. Because our decisions, I want God's will to always be done. Who doesn't? On paper, we always say that, we always believe that, but it's hard to actually do it. And so it doesn't always end up getting done, even though I intend for it to get done. So as awesome as it would be for like, a lot of people are like, just let God's will be done, it'll be done. And I wish it was that easy, but sometimes it's a little bit more difficult.
And like you said, I feel like that comes with a relationship with God. Like you have to be, like in order to know what God wants to do, you have to know who he is.
Right.
Just like with your friends, like if you want to get your friend a gift, you have to know what they like.
Right.
So it's the same idea. And so I think like one of those things is within like the context of a career is showing Christ in your work, like putting Christ on your sleeve in your work. What does that mean to you guys? Now that you guys have been in the workforce for a little bit, what does that mean to show Christ in your
I was gonna say, I think that like obviously when you talk about God, like in the Gospels, and you talk all these great things about him, right? He's all like everything about Christ is perfect. So as much perfection as I can do in my work, I'm now reflecting as much of Christ as I can. And it's really easy to say, for instance, oh, whenever my coworkers swear, I don't swear because I'm Christian. I'm reflecting Christ in my work, which is fantastic. This is really true, right? And the way that you act around your coworkers will help them to, ask you, why do you act like that? Why do you do that? And it highlights that I'm a Christian, right? So if I want to show Christ at the workplace, well, I'm going to be really ethical. I'm going to be really kind, show a lot of love. I won't swear. I won't curse. I'll follow God's principles. And it'll really help you in, reflecting Christ by being a good person. But beyond that, obviously, we say that Christ is without flaw, without, he's a perfect God, right? And so if I'm going to work and I don't curse and I don't swear and I do anything wrong, but I also slack off a lot, I'm cutting corners, I'm not really doing my job, I'm trying to get away with as minimal as possible, I don't think Christ would do that. So reflecting Christ in your work, it goes beyond just like I'm going to be a good person and they're going to know I'm Christian. There's a lot of good people out there, but I think doing everything the way Christ would do it, which is to the best of your ability and thought through with effort and dedication and diligence, all of those things help reflect kind of your morals, your ethics, and that is from your faith.
Yeah, I mean, that covers it. I think just basically being a representation of Christ at work is what you need to do, and that's in everything that you do. So that's working and doing everything that is required of you to your fullest extent. And that, because like Kevin was saying, like not drinking at functions that your work puts up is very easy because people won't tell you. Like if you say no, nobody's going to argue with you, right? People are like, nobody's going to push you to do that. People are kind of scared to do that nowadays, right? Doing all those kinds of things is almost the easier part, but it's very easy. Once you get into the workforce, you'll realize it's very easy to like half do it and still get away with it, and you'll be fine. Like chances are you'll genuinely be okay. If you put 60% in at work every single time you go, you'll probably be okay.
He's not wrong.
It's like they don't really tell you that when you're in college. They're like, people are gonna expect you to do this, and this, and like sure, I'm sure some jobs do require you to do like a whole list of things, but if you're putting 100% in everything, that comes back on you 10 times more than if you're putting 60% more. You will tell a difference. Sure, you will get by with 60%, but that's not a true representation. And
whenever it comes back in a positive light, then it becomes an attribution to Christ. Why he's doing a fantastic job. Let's go ask him, like, see how he's more productive, and then you can share your reasoning.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And I think that, like, God gave us all these things. Like, none of this is ours. Mm-hmm. Like, it's not our gift. It's not our talent. It's not our ability that gave us this job, or like the work that we're able to do, but it's all from him. And so we're just stewards of it. We're not owners of it. Like if I owned it, then I could do whatever I want with it. But because I'm a steward, I have to keep good care of it and do things faithfully. And so I think that's where, like to call yourself a Christian, you have to do all of your work faithfully and in good faith. Like you have to really put your all in, try your hardest, ask questions when needed. Like you really have to show that you care for the work that God has allowed you to have. Of course, it's really hard to do in the modern culture that we live in, and like the, work from home, do whatever you want, don't really, focus, stay locked in with work, and like just the culture around work in general. How do you guys stay disciplined and motivated to? How do you attempt to stay disciplined?
There we go. Okay, yeah, attempt is great. I love attempt.
How do you guys attempt to stay disciplined and motivated when work is not a very enticing environment for that?
I think I'll start this one off. You can add on. It's really easy. It's really easy to do nothing, because I work from home most of the time. I have some clients where I have to go to the office, and when you're at the office, you're doing work for most of the day. But like when you're work from home, you could finish your job in 4 hours, and you have 4 hours left to kind of just do nothing, right? And it's actually something I think about a lot, right? Because I'm being honest, because I know for a fact there's probably people out there who finish their work in 4 hours and then go to the gym for 4 hours, right? It's part of it. But I genuinely think about, if I am not communicating with like my managers and I'm like, hey, I finished this work, is there more stuff you need me to do? Or if I know someone also needs help with something and I can definitely help them with it, like if I'm not doing that, it's not necessarily being honest, and it's not being truthful in everything that you're doing at work. So I mean, I make like a concerted effort to like I make it to put as much forward as I can, basically, because it's very easy to just do those 4 hours worth of work and then get away with it. But that's not very truthful, and it's not always the easiest thing to do. But I still do it.
That's true. I will say that what I was taught, and like it's been repeated to me multiple times, is that laziness is the most dangerous of all the vices, because laziness leads you to all the other vices, right? The being lazy leads you to be gluttonous, lustful, you name it, and it stems from laziness, right? And so you can apply the same thing to work. If I am sitting in front of my desk, which is 3 feet from my bed, right, and my bed is still in fantastic soft condition, it's a fantastic mattress, right, and it's 3 feet away, and in front of me I have a headache-inducing, little piece of code or whatever it is in front of you, and you have technically checked the boxes for the day, it's really easy to kind of, commit time fraud, right? Skip work and just hop in bed, and you finish your work. On paper, you're fine. And so I will say that the same way I handle that is the same way I handle the temptation of laziness in everything, right? Prayer is obviously a great source, but it's outside of prayer while you're working, it's engaging yourself. It's trying to do more. It's pushing yourself to, the little things like, oh, I'm going to take a break. It's the same like when you're studying and you're lazy and you're drained. You're going to go for a walk. Maybe you're going to, go grab a drink of water, grab a snack, do whatever, move or switch gears, work on something else, study something else. All of those same like practical applications I think apply to laziness and the workforce, but I think it's just as serious of a threat. Like as funny as it is that like, oh, I can take a nap in the middle of the day or whatever, and nobody will be any the wiser, or play FIFA or CS or whatever it is that you play, right? It is truly, it's leading you to be lazy, and that is a sin in of itself, because when you're sitting there and you work 8 hours a day and you're being lazy for 5 of them, well, that laziness is going to transfer to other sins, other issues, and then outside of just your 8 hours of work, you're going to be lazy in general outside of that. It's not like I'm going to work 9 to 5, be lazy because my job is easy, and then be full of energy from 5 to 9 the next day.
Do you think that by disciplining yourself spiritually or by taking your spiritual life seriously, it makes it easier for you to do that in the workplace, or vice versa, or neither?
I think that when you have a very strong spiritual life, it kind of stays at the back of your head, right? Because it's always there, right? Like in the back of your head, you can always, like, at least for me, I'll speak for myself. I think I'm always thinking I can get away with it, right? But the thing is, because I guess of the spiritual life that I have specifically, I guess.
Are you saying that you skip work and get lazy?
I say I think about it all the time.
Oh, okay.
Absolutely.
Good man.
I think about skipping work, and then I realize that I probably shouldn't skip work, and I don't. But I think that's because I understand that it's probably not the right thing to do, and because I think of my spiritual life, it's just not always the best fit.
I kind of want to highlight what he said. It's in the back, like a strong spiritual life will leave these virtues in the back of your mind, like all the time. Like, oh, I'm going to be lazy if I keep this up. Oh, I'm going to do this if I keep this up. Oh, if I sit in front of this desk and instead of work, I'm going to eat my entire bag of Doritos. This is not going to end well for me, right? So I think your spiritual life being stronger will give you the opportunity or the chance to realize what you're doing is wrong and to stop it. But I don't know if I can say that a strong spiritual life will just make it, like, will resolve that issue, right? If I'm super religious or I'm not super religious, if I'm very, spiritually aligned and my mind is always on my faith and my beliefs, I will be aware that what I'm doing could be wrong. But I think it takes a sense of discipline, of physical discipline, to push yourself to not fall into those sins or those temptations, right? I think, if I'm spiritually aware, I'm going to realize what I'm doing is wrong, but it's then up to some discipline and prayer and actual action to get out of it.
Do you think that discipline is something that was developed over time throughout your life, or something that you developed recently because work is pretty lazy, or what?
You're assuming I have that discipline.
I'm just asking.
No. It's a mix of both. Like I said, because me personally, I kind of just, I'm speaking from my personal life where I always knew, you know what's right and what's wrong. We're blessed with that discernment and that spiritual discernment, and oh no, this is not right. I did have to develop that sense of responsibility and that physical action to it. It got really I got lazy during COVID. I'm sure most people did, right? COVID, I woke up and my teachers were lazy and they were skipping the classes. They were just sending us paper booklets to finish. And I was like, oh, this is really easy. And then it never got hard again, moving forward. And so for the first year or two of COVID, I was like, well, okay, I can just coast. And honestly, you could probably get away with it for the rest of your life at this point, right? With all the technologies that we have and how simple and work from home and everything, you could. So I will say that I really quickly had to develop the physical, or not the physical, just the mental and the physical kind of self-discipline. You always know what's wrong, right? We're blessed with that we know what's right and we know what's wrong for the most part through our faith and our religion and all that. But actually doing it, I think that's something I had to develop.
I mean, yeah, I think discipline in the workplace is the same as discipline anywhere. It's something that you actively have to think about, because if you're not actively trying to stay disciplined, it's very easy to lose it. And it's something that's like an active process. So if you're not actively trying to stay on top of everything and checking with people, see if they need help or see if there's more work to do or whatever it is, it's going to be very easy to go take a nap, do whatever else.
So you talked a little bit about COVID and about like college and stuff, and I wanted to ask about the transitioning between college to the real world, to the real life. Because me being in my second year of college, that's a little bit ways away. But what is the biggest takeaway you've had of the past year and a half, 2 years of being out of college?
Yeah, sure. Being out of college, the number of important life decisions you make within maybe a 3-year span out of school, there's so many decisions you have to make, so many decisions. And I think that if you're not in a very good place spiritually, those decisions become significantly harder, right? Because, I mean, like we were talking about earlier, if you're not having God with you in everything that you do to start with, then those decisions become wrong decisions and you have to remake those decisions, right? And if you're not making those decisions with God with you, then it's going to make your life significantly harder. I think that coming out of school, there's a couple of things that change significantly, at least for me, and these are things I realized. You're in a really weird place where I have a couple of friends who are, they have class from 7 to 9 p.m. at school, like Tuesday, Thursday. And then there's a couple who are working 8 to 5s. And then there's a couple who are like
job
looking
hunting
for jobs. and everybody's in a completely different place, right? And right when you get out of school and you start working, you work this 8 to 5 and you're exhausted after 5 p.m. Like I remember right when I started working, after 5 p.m., I wanted to take a nap. And then I had friends who were like, let's go play soccer, or let's go play basketball, or let's go do something else. I'm like, man, I want to sleep for the next 8 hours and then I'll work the next day, right? And all these different things happen at the exact same time.
That's so true, though, the sleep thing. I interned this past summer. I'd get home, I'm knocking out.
Exactly.
Every single day.
100%.
Yeah, you worked harder than me.
It's just like once you do it and you're actually putting an effort in, because you're like, you start work, you're like, okay, I got to be on top of my game.
Yeah.
I don't want to get fired. Like this is some real stuff, right? And it's making that transition and finding the balance between work, church, personal life, all of these things. It's definitely a transition, but it's something that you can do as long as you kind of have God with you to make those decisions.
A couple of things Johnny said, I really strongly agree with. First off, when you first get out of college, you make a lot of decisions all at once, right?
Yeah.
And the other thing too is,
What are some of those decisions?
yeah, I mean, I guess I'm a good example. I proposed in June.
Congratulations.
Thanks, man.
Congratulations, Kevin.
And so that obviously I was not doing that in college because, but I wanted to do that when I felt like it was a good time, like career-wise, life-wise, financially, mentally, physically, emotionally. All of those kind of had to be lined up right for me to make that decision. And when I was in college, I wasn't even thinking about it because college is not the time or place to get engaged, right? Or maybe that's debatable, but in my mind, I was like, I'm not going to get engaged in college. I'm not going to do a proposal while I'm in college because it's not the right time for me. So the considerations of that started right upon graduation or slightly right before graduation. And so that's a really big decision, and it kind of ties into everything else. Well, where am I going to work? What kind of, now I have this job offer, this job interview, this job offer. I can reach out to this person, potentially get a job offer. All these options on the table, they will drastically change your future. What Johnny said, what Johnny said about your first 3 years being a big deal are true, right? I mean, if I'm working right now with Johnny at this company, our company has, it's really easy to get away with, or not to get away with. It's really easy to take on more work or less work, in the sense that if I reach out and I say, hey, I want to do more, I want to go above and beyond, it's really easy. And those first 2-3 years are very, on the career side, your first 2-3 years in your career are going to dictate how the rest of your career goes till you're 65. Your first 2-3 years will be the most important ones. And so, funnily enough, when I first got hired, I was, consulting, see how it works for, anyone unfamiliar. You kind of get assigned to a company. The company needs help with this project. We're going to send you to help them out on a really, if we're just summarizing it. And so when I first started, they had me without a client. So I had no work. And so for the first 3-4 months, it was, I'm sitting here waiting for someone to, need my services. And the best part about that is that's where you can highlight, what kind of, how, you can dictate your own career in a sense where I was working on some certifications and I was working on, trainings and all that and trying to get in a place where I would be beneficial and kind of improve myself on the career side. But there were also days where I didn't do much. And there's nothing against that. There's nothing wrong with that. I could have stayed the whole 4 months just playing video games and traveling. That's technically allowed. It's not an issue, but it kind of hinders you a lot. And so I will say that what Johnny said about those first 3 years being important are true. And it's a really big difference to wake up one day and not have, after hours responsibilities, right? Like after 5, I'm free. Before 8, I'm free. 9 to 5, sure, I'm working. But other than that, I'm free and I collect a paycheck now. I have money. I can make decisions that are stupid. I can make decisions that are smart. I have the time to do them. It's less flexible, but it's a lot more free. And so getting to have to make a lot of decisions all at once, getting a lot of freedom and getting some money, hopefully a lot of money. I hope everyone, is doing great. But all that comes in at once. And now all of a sudden we're making a lot of decisions.
I would say there's one big thing, at least for me, right when I started, I'm going to just say the statement, the thief of joy is comparison. And I think that right when you get out of school, everybody's in a different place, like I was saying before, right? And I think that it's very easy to look at this person and be like, why does they have that, and that, right? I wouldn't mind having that job or whatever it is, right? And I think that coming out of school, the opportunity for that to happen is through the roof, right? Because you're going to have a guy who is making $140,000 right out of school, right? Or you're going to have another person who's making $50,000 out of school, right? And then you're going to have a lot of people in between.
140,000.
That's crazy, right? Yeah. But there's people, right? And I think that if you don't actively know that that's something that can happen to you, like in terms of your mindset, you're gonna be very miserable for quite a while, right? And I'm gonna talk for myself. That was something for me right at the beginning. I had to talk to my father for confession about probably 2 or 3, maybe 4 times before I figured out how I deal with it and what's my way to look at it from a different perspective, right? And I think that if you're not, you have to understand that God's gonna give you what's best for you, right? And what's best for you is not always best for Kevin or best for Isaiah, or best for whoever. And I think that it's important to look at that right outside of school.
I think everybody is in, like what Johnny said, once you get all the freedom all at once, and everybody's in a different place. And then you start making a lot of decisions because of that. Like, oh, well, this person's doing this, and that. I should do this, and that. Oh, this person is here. Maybe I should be there. Maybe I should relocate. Maybe I should move. Maybe I should buy this or do that. Or I think I'm ready to make this decision or that decision. And it's based on everybody else just all of a sudden getting that freedom. And then also you have your freedom and you're looking at others.
So when you guys are making all these decisions and you have all these different variables in life and all these factors and get very overwhelming very quickly, you mentioned Father of Confession. What are ways that you guys, have support, sorry, it's been a long day, have support to make those decisions and to do things in a godly and in a correct manner?
I think for me, I'm blessed to have a very good support system. My friends like Kevin and all of them I know.
Oh, thanks, man.
Yeah, no problem. They all are very wise, right? And I think, trust me. The first time I'm saying that I questioned it, but then I thought about it. I was like, wait, yeah, they're wise. My friends they have very good judgment, and they see things from outside that I probably won't see from within, right? If I'm trying to make a decision about should I look for a new job, should I buy this car, whatever it is, right? I know that my friends will actively call me out if they think that I'm making a dumb decision, right? And I think on the other side of that, when it comes to the difficulties that come with working and being outside of school, from a spiritual perspective, I have my Father of Confession, and I know there's servants that I can talk to all the time that will help me make those decisions. And I think that ultimately your spiritual life and how much time you put towards it and your effort plays a big impact. And having gotten all those decisions makes a big impact on that as well.
I agree with most of what Johnny said. I will say that one thing is, like I said, you get a lot of freedom and you make a lot of decisions. The problem is sometimes because you're so focused on that, you're the one making the decision. And what I mean by that is I'm going to reach out to my friends. I'm going to reach out to my father confession. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. I'm going to and like you're doing good things, right? I'm going to reach out to my father confession. I'm going to reach out to my friends. I'm going to make this decision in hopes that, this is the right decision in terms of God's will. But again, it's more so you making the decision. It's really kind of quite amazing how if you give God the chance, he will make this decision very easy for you. I'll give you a kind of a stupid example about that. And Johnny knows where I'm going with this. I was looking at a couple cars, right? Just like I was car shopping, as any young college graduate with bad financial decisions will do, right? And so I was looking at this car and I was looking at one specific... Oh, it's a picture of me. And so... So I was looking at this car and it was like one specific model, right? And I was looking at 3 different versions of it, right? And every time I was like, all right, God, like I'm going to do it today. Today I'm going to buy this car. But if you don't want it to happen, I want your will to be done. Just take away my decision. I won't be upset. Take away my decision. And I kid you not, and I tell you the most comically hilarious things would happen to these cars when I'd go to grab them, right? So I tried to go buy a car. And actually, I traveled for the car. I was in Florida. And so while I was there, I drove 3 hours to this car. And I was talking to this guy for a week at the dealership. And he was sending me pictures, keeping me up to date, giving me status reports. I go in there, and he sent me pictures of the wrong car. He had 2 cars that were the same color, but one of them was in way worse condition than the other. And, that's not something that usually happens, right? They sent me pictures of the wrong car and then told me that they did services that were never done. Like, they made up a lot of stuff. And I was like, wow, that is insanely silly like that. I never thought I'd actually experience that. So I left. I was like, God, you know what? I'm kind of bummed, but I understand. I told you I won't be upset, so I won't be upset. A couple weeks later, I was looking at a same car, right? Just a different physical vehicle. It was here in Dallas. And I was like, God, okay, this is the one. We're going to do it. And I went to go do it. And I like agreed on, I did all the paperwork and everything else and all that. And they're going to go grab the car and they go, oh, hey, the AC just broke. I was like, are you going to fix it? They're like, no, we're just not going to sell it to you. We've decided that it's not worth repairing or selling, or we'd be selling at a loss. And this was after like weeks and weeks of like talking to this guy back and forth and agreements. And I went in and out of that dealership. And I was like, wow, just like that.
This is like a dealership, not like Facebook.
No, this is all dealerships. These are all dealerships.
That's crazy.
And I was like, the AC unit broke. And this is not like an old car. This car is like 2 years old, right? And I was like, oh, the AC unit just broke. And then there was a third one, same exact model. And I was like, third time's the charm. God, I love you. You love me. Let's make this happen, right? And I prayed about it. And once again, I was like, God, like if this doesn't happen, I'm just not going to look at this car again. And they're like, okay, yeah, car's good. We've agreed on the price and everything. It needs to get a recall done. It's going to take 2 days. I was like, okay, well, we can wait 2 days. 2.5 weeks later, this car's still not done. And I prayed about it. And then I gave them another call. And they were like, oh, yeah. So it'll be done in like 5 days. It turns out there was some issues with your engine sensors and all that. So we're just repairing those. And they didn't want to tell me about it for the first 2.5 weeks. And I was like, the same car has had 3 significant issues and 3 problems that are comically out of place. Like, like that's not something that, like maybe it could happen to somebody once or twice, but for it to happen 3 times, and obviously there's more details, but it doesn't matter much. And I was like, well, I think if you give God truly the final say and you tell him, I'm giving you, like, God, please make your will be done. I don't know what to do here. And I'm having like, here's what I'm thinking and here's what I know and don't know. You'd be quite surprised, right? It's less about, oh, I need to make this decision. I need to make that decision. And I'm going to talk to Johnny for his advice. And I'm going to talk to my father confession. And I'm going to read the Bible. You're going to do all those things. But if you do all those things and then still make the same decision that was on your head from day one, you're not really giving God any, God's not doing anything there. You're just kind of like playing the role of a good Christian and then just doing whatever's on your mind.
I really like that point.
Yeah.
I think, it's like playing the game of like acting like, yeah, right. I'm doing all these things.
And then you tell your parents and your friends, oh no, I prayed about it. And I talked to my father confession and, I said, God, make it, your will be done. And then I just did it.
Yeah. That's a very funny story though, with all those cars.
That's crazy.
So you got the car or a car?
I got a completely different car. I stopped looking at that car.
How different are we talking?
we went from Korean to German.
There we go. So
Yeah.
opposite side of the world.
Yep, opposite side
There
of the
we go.
world. I'm happy with it. It's fun.
That's good. That's
Yeah.
sick. So part of these, we're talking about the change and transition in times. There's a lot of uncertainty. Like you guys were talking about, like what job, where, how, and there's obviously a lot of values and priorities and like things that are important to you throughout these times.
Mm-hmm.
Now in college, what's important to you is definitely different than high school. I can tell you that, and I'm sure it's different as you move on past college. How have your values and priorities and decisions and how you make the decision, the frame of mind that you use, how has all of that changed throughout these past few stages of life?
You got it. You can start. Yeah.
All right. One thing I want to highlight real quick when you said that things are uncertain and all that, I love thinking about that because every time I get worried and uncertain, I'm like, well, it's uncertain for me, but God knows the answer. And it makes me feel a lot better every single time where I'm like I'm making a big decision. I'm like, I don't know what's going to happen, but you do. And you love me and I love you. So hopefully things you're not going to let me down. And God never does let you down. And so when you're talking about the change in what you're looking for, I will say that as you get older and you gain more independence, you develop your own priorities, right? And as you get older, you get more responsibility. When I'm younger, Mom and Boba told me I better pass my classes. I'm going to pass my classes. When I got into college, Mom and Boba are still a very big part of my life. But I have some more freedom than I did when I was in high school, right? I can come home past 10. Could probably push it to 11:30. But, I have a lot more independence, jokes aside, right? And so you have a lot more independence, and then your independence leads to you developing your own ideals. I was younger, I was trying to go to church because Mom Bubble made me, but now I'm going to church because I found that when I pray before I take an exam, I tend to do better. And I read that little Pope Carollo's prayer that everybody has with that icon on Instagram, pops up every midterm season. When I pray that, my grades get better. So now maybe on my own accord, I'm trying to come to church. And then when I get older and I've graduated and I have no preset direction or purpose sometimes where, you can find a job, but why do you live in Dallas? Why are you here? What are you doing this for? There's no restrictions anymore. If I moved tomorrow to Iceland, my fiance wouldn't be happy, but other than that, right? You could, there's nothing holding you back. And so as you gain more freedom and you lose these restrictions, you start to develop your own priorities independent of where you're the ones that your parents gave you or the church gave you or whatever. And as you ideally, when you mature properly and correctly and through the church, it just so happens that the church helps decide your priorities. You naturally want to be closer to God. You naturally want to be in the church. I have no purpose, no direction, but every single time when I was a kid, when I prayed, things worked out well. And now I want God in my life. Mm-hmm. So I will say that your priorities change because you're given more freedom and less direction. And so you, instead of the direction you lost, you replace it with your faith. And it's something that you want to do because you've seen how well the faith has treated you so far.
Yeah. When you watch a movie and you're watching the movie and you realize this is what's going to happen next, right? When you're like a really bad movie, you know exactly what's going to happen. It's like a horrible movie because exactly the next move that the main character is going to make. The thing that I love about, I love uncertainty because God always will surprise you with the next thing that happens. And it's always something that's almost completely different than anything that you'd ever expect. For me, for example, I interned at the company I work for now. And when I got my offer, I was supposed to move to Chicago, right? And I was told by 110 different people that I should have moved to Chicago, right?
I was one of them.
Kevin was one of them. And I talked to Kevin. I did what Kevin was saying earlier. I talked to Kevin. I talked to my friends. I talked to Muna. I talked to my servants. I talked to my parents, right? And everyone told me not to do it. So I was like, okay, God, you're probably telling me not to move to Chicago. And I talked to the recruiter at the company that I work for, and she was basically saying nobody ever moves. It's hard to move offices, especially when you're just getting your first entry-level offer. It's like no chance, but I'll see what I can do, right? And I remember, I was praying about it. Kevin, do you remember when I found out?
Yeah.
It was during Holy Week. It was during Holy Week. It was Wednesday.
Oh,
it was on Wednesday, and St. Mark's, the church that Kevin serves at.
The one that you don't serve at, right?
Yeah. I don't serve at the church.
But you were there for Good Friday? Wednesday.
No, so it was Holy Wednesday, but it was because you guys were getting the altar consecrated.
Oh, that's right.
You guys got it consecrated during Holy Week?
Yes.
Did we?
Yes.
Oh.
I remember
On Thursday?
on a Wednesday.
Oh, because
Wednesday.
we wanted it done by Covenant
By
Thursday's
Thursday.
liturgy.
So you were doing it Wednesday, and so that you could use it on Thursday.
I think that's right. Yeah, because
Yeah.
Yusuf's flight was the later, or he had to push us back because it was supposed to be Sunday, something like that.
Yeah.
Wow.
It was Wednesday, and I was literally standing there next to Kevin, and then like Kevin's brother Jason was on the other side, and I get an email, and the email says, "Congratulations! Didn't think it was gonna happen, but we accepted your transfer to move back to the Dallas office." Right, and all of these things, like all of these opportunities that you have, where uncertainty is like all the way in your mind, and you don't know anything that's going to happen, like that just is another opportunity for God to show you that He's there with you in His life, in your life, right? And having those opportunities and letting God make those choices for you, right, is another way for you to kind of choose what your priorities are, right? Because my father of confession tells me, like, everything that you do it. Obviously, you have the discernment to tell if you're doing something smart or something dumb, right? But whatever you're doing, do it and then pray while you're doing it, right? And that's kind of the way that I look at most of the decisions I make and everything that I do with uncertainty. It's like, okay, I'm going to try and make the right decision, what I think it is, but I know for a fact that God will throw me in the opposite direction.
He'll take over if he needs to.
Exactly. So that's kind of how I deal with uncertainty and all those things.
That's all I have for you guys. Anything else you guys wanted to say? Any last words? Comments, concerns, questions?
How's your day going?
Yeah.
How's my day going?
How's
How
your
are
day
you?
going?
What's your purpose in life?
Purpose in life. It's deep. How am I doing? I'm good. It's been a long day. I only have 2 more of these though.
He dodged the purpose of life question
He
really
did.
well.
I'm gonna continuously dodge that question. But I'm doing good, thank God. Yeah. Dallas is nice.
Dallas is
I can see why you decided to stay.
Yeah.
He made it sound like he was excited to stay.
At the time, I didn't want to stay in Dallas, but
Why?
I don't know. I felt like I was at this point where I was like, I don't know. There's not a lot for me here, and I feel like when we go back to that like thing that we were talking about before, at least I was talking about like joy or comparison is the thief of joy. Like I feel like I was really in like the middle of that, and I was like comparing myself to other people, comparing myself to who I want to be in the future. Right? It's like I don't think that can happen in Dallas, and I was like, let's go to Chicago instead, and then ultimately God helped me make the decision to not be in Chicago.
It's interesting you say that because because of this podcast, I travel too much, like a lot, and I've been what feels like everywhere on the East Coast, and then now like moving a little bit west.
Now we're expanding our
We're
horizons.
expanding horizons,
I
going a little
like
west. We're not gonna go more west than this, probably.
No, there's nothing over there. Cali.
You don't want to go there.
I don't want to go to Cali. It's okay. I'm good. But the comparison to the thief of joy is so true. Like, cause I'm from Atlanta, and so Atlanta's it's not a huge Coptic community. But it's definitely not like tiny. It's like small, medium size, you know? And you go to these huge places, you go to Nashville, you go to Jersey, you go to DC, you go to Dallas, all these places with like massive Coptic communities. Mm-hmm. And it's like you're comparing like, all the services that you guys have, all the different churches, all the different options. And it's like, well, I don't have that in Atlanta, you know? And that's just one aspect of it. Of course, there's so many other things. And like you forget to like be grateful. You forget to like thank God for the things that you do have. Like the fact that I have the ability to travel like this in the middle of the school year and like do all these cool things, talk to all these cool people. And I mean, I just posted 100th podcast 2 weeks ago. Like,
congrats, man.
Thank you.
He called the school people.
He doesn't know us yet.
He doesn't know us.
Like it's like insane. Like no one has this opportunity like I do. And so I think, like you said, like comparisons is I really like that. I'm gonna steal that from you. I'm gonna quote you from
Go for it.
Every time I say from now on, I'm saying that was Jonathan's quote.
Thank you.
There you go. Of course.
I feel like I saw it on Google, but you can.
It was
have
probably like
No,
an Instagram post.
I'm
no,
giving
just
it.
straight Jonathan. Okay.
It's Jonathan.
Jonathan Beshara.
Yeah, Jonathan Beshara. All right, well, that's all I got. Anything y'all want to say?
No, man, thank you for your time.
Thank you for having
No,
us.
thank you for your time. Thank you guys for coming on the podcast.
Yeah.
Thank you guys for watching. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe. Turn on post notifications. See you guys next week. Thank you guys.
Thank you.
And maybe I'll see you guys next week.